Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm switching things up a little bit here. I'm going to do a voiceover. Been getting a little bit of heat about not explaining things thoroughly, so with that in mind, hopefully this helps. Today we're making a CNC enclosure. I recently got a CNC machine for my shop, and because my shop's small, I wanted somewhere to put this where I could have storage underneath and also kind of keep the dust down and the noise down CNC. If you follow me, you know my shop is attached to the house, so we try to be respectful of other people in the house, aka Allie. So I'm just breaking down some 3/4 inch plywood here. This is just maple plywood from my local building home center. It's okay, it's got some voids in it and stuff. Even though it's made out of maple, this isn't a high-end piece of furniture. We're gonna build it to quality, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm ripping down sheets for basically 2 cases. This bottom platform with all the drawers and the cabinets in it is gonna be made up of kind of like 2 cabinets or cases like musicians bring on the road, if that makes sense. They're both 20 inches by 61 inches, and they're gonna go back to back and be fastened together to make a 40 by 61 inch base cabinet for the CNC enclosure to go on top of. The reason for that is because I know I won't be in this shop forever. I'm going to eventually want to move this thing, and it should be able to be broken down into 2 or 3 manageable pieces that can fit through my doorways. Something of this size doesn't fit through the doorway on its own or all together, so I need some way to break it down to make it a little easier going. Right here, I'm ripping a slot in the back of each case. These cases are basically 4 sides with a floating 1/4 inch maple back to them. I'm essentially just making a dado, but because it's only a 1/4 inch piece, I'm just gonna run it through this a couple times and check my fit to make sure it's good. Like I said, that back piece is just gonna float in there. So 2 passes should be enough. And you can see I always use a sample piece or a cutoff to test that fit. So I went through twice, it looks good, it's snug, but it still kind of slides. Even though this is plywood, I don't know if there's going to be any expansion or contraction, but I just wanted to mitigate the situation by putting this thing in place. I got 2 backs out of 1 sheet, which is pretty nice. And the only other thing I'll use that 1/4 inch plywood for is drawer bottoms, which you'll see in the next video. Now that I've got all my pieces cut for my cabinets, I'm gonna start assembling them. Like I said, there's 2, so this is the first one I did. And I just lay the back down. You'll see I glue and staple the sides. I find this is easiest to just screw staples in, get everything square, and then screw it into place. So what I'll do is I'll staple these 2 on, use clamps obviously to get them lined up, drop the back in, make sure that fits, and then go ahead with the screws. So there I'm just dropping the back in. It's a nice fit. I've got about an 1/8 inch play all the way around. You can see I'm wiggling it just to make sure it's tight. I actually screwed this one up. I ended up throwing glue in that bead there. That was a mistake, but I noticed it. You'll see I kind of giggle in this next shot and wipe it off and start over because I wanted that to be a floating back, and I don't know, I just kind of got caught up in the moment, I guess, who knows. I use this woodpecker T, I don't remember what it's called. It's like some sort of marking gauge. So basically I just run a line down so I know where to countersink all my screws and they line up pretty. It's a really handy thing. I use it for a lot of different stuff, especially plywood when you've got to kind of hit the center of that butt joint just to make sure you don't splinter it or whatnot. So I'm ripping a couple shelves here, you'll see. Now that I've got the cabinet all built, I'm gonna put in a couple dividers and a couple shelves. They're not actual shelves, they're just gonna kind of work as a guide for my drawers and my cabinets. It's just an easy way to line everything up, and you'll see in the end that I end up edge banding all of this exposed plywood edge. And so for the drawer dividers, you'll see I threw in a 4-inch piece, just so I've got something to put the edge banding on in the front. And I spaced all these evenly. There's gonna be 4 drawers across the top of this one. And like I said, I actually made 2 of these cabinets. The other one has 3. I didn't show it because it's basically a little repetitive. It's the same idea, just kind of a different variation of drawers and cabinets. So once I get those dividers in there, I'll put up that bottom plate. Probably unnecessary. I probably didn't have to go the full 20-inch depth, but I did end up gluing the back of it, so I figured it could add a little bit of stability and prevent racking. Those dividers went in with pocket holes and then just butt joints on the end. And I'm knocking in another divider. To the right of that is going to be a cabinet, and to the left of that is going to be 3 more drawers, which you'll see in a second. Just making sure that's nice and square. And as you can see, all those exposed edges are going to be edge banded. This is giving me a nice little base, and I ended up edge banding with mahogany, so it's a nice contrast, that maple and mahogany. You can see I'm putting it down here. 250 feet of edge banding went into these 2 cabinets, and I ended up having to break open another 250 foot roll for the drawers, which you'll see in the next video. I just finished it with a Danish oil to bring out some of the grain, and then I ended up putting 2 coats of polyacrylic on top of that, and I think it turned out pretty good. So stay tuned for part 2. We're gonna knock out the drawers and put these cases together, and part 3 we'll do the actual enclosure piece for the top. So as always, guys, thank you for hanging out. Remember, always trust your guide. We'll see you next time.